Hello, everybody. Thank you for literally coming to my TED Talk. I'm going to be talking about collaborating with designers on Figma. And I'll be talking about Figma, but you can kind of apply this to collaborating with designers anywhere and also collaborating with other team members. So I'm Ayelet, as I said. I'm a UX writer. I work for Wix Stores, which is an app that helps people sell anything they want online on Wix. And I'm also a big nerd, so I like Figma a lot. And I like kind of exploring how we can work better with Figma, how we can collaborate better in Figma. And I've learned some valuable lessons that I think can help some of you out. First of all, show of hands, also on Zoom. Ever felt like you were just a guest on your file and the designer actually owned it and you had to ask permission to do things? And yeah, okay. I see all of the UX writers raise their hands. That happened to me also. Actually, I had a case where that was really kind of hard for me. When we just kind of started working in Figma at Wix, I had a case where a designer opened a file called Source of Truth. And she put all of the screens for a specific flow there, or like a specific area of the product. And I was like, yay, all the screens are there, so I can use that to like workshop and optimize and change things and all that kind of stuff. And when she saw that I did that I drafted in that document, she was very upset. So apparently, she meant for it to be like an actual representation of the source of truth of the product and what actually lives in production right now and not all of my plans for the future. So she added this to what happened? She added this. Designers only. Needless to say, I was very annoyed. I was like, okay, so you can design the words yourself. No, but I had a conversation with her, and obviously I understood that we had a communication problem, right? So she didn't really see me as somebody who needed to know what she planned to do with that file. She sort of thought, okay, I'm not going to touch anything anyway, so I don't need to be informed. And that's not true. So I want to tell you guys how we got from this to this, which is, I didn't have an image of us, so I asked AI to do something, but we look like this with the eyes and the hands and everything. Thanks. So there are a few tips that I want to share with you, and the first one is really about establishing mutual trust. So this designer and I, and by the way, if you're seeing this, no hard feelings, we obviously didn't really trust each other enough to be able to say, okay, you can do whatever you want to my file because you know everything about it. And I couldn't say, okay, you trust me enough to, I trust you to share the stuff with me. And so we had a communication and a trust problem. And there were a few things that I did or we did to kind of solve that problem. First of all, I started to create my own playground in the file. What does that mean? So that can mean either just creating a small section next to each flow or next to each kind of screen where I workshop my own part of the flow. So I create like drafts for my copy and stuff, and then I move it back to the main design. Or even my own page, right? So now I have a page where I kind of put research and all kind of stuff, and that really helps me. So my own playground, first of all, it creates clarity. Okay, so if I was workshopping everything on her design, nobody would know what's the final content. Nobody would know, the devs wouldn't know where they're supposed to be taking it from. She would be confused about like what I'm doing. So having those separate can be really helpful to us. The second thing is it gives me the freedom to experiment, right? So I'm not afraid that I'm going to break something, that I'm going to ruin something for her. I can do whatever I want in my page because I'm the full owner of it, whereas the file is shared between us. And also kind of like a side benefit of this is that now I'm able to document all those different versions, whereas if I did this in the main part of the file, I would need to clear it out after. I would need to clean it up. So when I talk about having my own playground in the file, often people tell me, okay, how do I know when my designer updated something, right? If I'm working on my own section, So the secret is, for me, is not to take like all of the screens and put them on my page and only look at those. Okay, I'm still involved in looking at everything else that she's doing. I'm still looking at the main page. Sometimes I would only take like small parts that I need to workshop, not always take the whole flow. So it's not like I'm hiding in my own little corner. Okay, I'm still sharing the file. I'm just like, I have my own space to experiment. So that's one thing. Another thing about creating trust is using local components. I'm not going to explain what they are because that's going to take me a while and a lot of like flowcharts. But basically, it's a really handy way to kind of update text across the entire file. So first of all, it's easier to update, right? So if I use local components, it's easier for me not to break things because I only do it in one place. And also, for the designer, it's super easy to fix. Okay, so if I've broken something, they only need to fix it in one place. They don't actually need to go through everything in the file and fix it. Okay, so that helps create trust between us because she knows that I will not mess up her design so bad that she will need to spend an hour fixing it. And the last thing about trust is discuss your workflow. Okay, so it's not embarrassing or stupid to be asking another member of your team, how do we want to work on this together? Okay, every project is different, every team is different, and we have to have those discussions every once in a while. So creating kind of standards, okay, talking about how we want to work together, asking questions like, where can I find the most up-to-date screens? Okay, so sometimes it changes, it's not always the same place. Where can I find the components that you've built for me because we're totally working with them? And also, how would you like to communicate changes in the design so I don't have to like find out that something's changed 5 minutes before rollout? So all of those questions can help you kind of communicate and collaborate with each other. And again, they're not stupid questions to ask. You should be asking them. And it's not just for you, right? So when we talk about trust, it's not like I'm saying, you have to convince the designer to let you use the file, right? Because that's what you have to do a lot of times. It's also about you not being afraid that somebody's gonna like delete all of your content or change it without letting you know. So those questions and discussing the process can help you align in a way that makes everybody comfortable. Cool. So now that we've established trust, let's talk about becoming an actual design partner. So a lot of times, the problem that we have with Figma is that people don't really think about us as people, or as somebody who has like actual needs when it comes to the design, okay? Because we don't act as design partners sometimes, okay? When we come in and all we do is just change the text, and we don't talk about design, we don't talk about the UX, we don't talk about how things look and can behave. That makes it easier for people to just say, okay, she's just going to come in and change the text, so whatever, like she doesn't need to know about the Figma. Becoming a true design partner can help people see you as a real collaborator in the file. So first of all, get to know Figma and your design system. Okay, I think getting to know Figma is kind of like obvious in a sense, right? Because if you know Figma and you know how to use it, then you don't break things, and it can help be easier to collaborate with you. But also, it helps you speak the same language. It also helps you make helpful suggestions, and we'll see that in a second. And it helps you stop walking on eggshells, right? So you don't have to come into the file and be like, I'm not going to change this because I break it. If you know Figma and you have the tool, really, then you can be confident in what you're doing. And that really, really helps the collaboration. And the design system is important because there's a difference between saying something like this, where it's like, not sure this content stands out enough, and the designer can do whatever they want with it, and they can say, oh, okay, sure, I'll look at it, I'll think about it. Or saying something like, I know that the design system has another color for this. Maybe that can work better. Or maybe we can try to add a title because I know the design system allows that. So it's like Pam said before, giving actionable feedback, giving useful feedback is really better than giving vague and unhelpful feedback. So the more you know the design system, the more you can have an actual effective conversation around Figma and around the design. And then the second thing about being a design partner is we have to make our voices heard. So I think very often, as writers, I see that we are afraid to kind of make suggestions that will, make people angry, or kind of say what we need because the designer might not like it, or the PM might not like it. But actually, we have to speak up about our needs, right? Because we are a part of a team, and the team just wants us to be as effective as possible, okay? You have to help your team help you. Tell them what you need in regards to the process. Tell them how you can collaborate better with them, okay? And understand that your team just wants you to be happy because that makes for a better product. I had a case where I spoke to somebody about Figma, not from Wix, and she said that she doesn't have access to Figma, or she doesn't have editing access to Figma, and she doesn't know if she can ask for it because it's just not how it works in our company. And she doesn't know how the PM will respond, how the designer will respond. And she came back to me like 3 weeks later. We had another conversation, and she said, "Oh, you know what? I went to my designer and I told them everything we talked about, how helpful it can be for me to have editing access." And he said, "Okay, so you have it now." So I think a lot of times we're just afraid to kind of, make a mess. But we have to say what we need because they're not against us. It's not like we're enemies, okay? If we don't kind of communicate about it, nothing's going to happen. And then the last part is really about communicating. Communicate constantly, right? So the first thing is comments. I think a lot of people, when they think about communicating in Figma, they think about comments. Because comments can be a really, really nice tool. They can help us communicate. But to be honest, they're not the best tool to be having long conversations. Okay, it's not where you're supposed to be talking about the text, as in like, okay, let's now talk about every piece of text and where it should go and what you should write in it and all that. Okay, you should be having actual conversations with people in person. They are very good for things like making notes for other people or for yourself, right? So while you're talking to somebody in person, you can make notes. And they're good for tagging other people when you're making changes. So this question about like, how will I know when the designer changed something in the file? They should tag you and let you know because you are not a magician and you won't be able to tell even if you do look at their design every day, all day. And keep each other in the loop, like in general, okay? So just like, again, collaborate together. Like the designer should be aware that you're part of the process. They should let you know about things, and you should also let them know by tagging them and writing comments and all that kind of stuff. Another way that we can communicate better in Figma is use status labels. So for example, if I use status labels, and they're very clear and everybody can see them, I can make rules for my team, or we can create guidelines. For example, if the content is not started yet, then that means that it's definitely not ready for handoff, okay? Because no UX writer has seen it, and it's just going to be a waste of code to be writing it right now. If the content is done, okay, and I'm making changes to the design, then I should probably let the writer know, because otherwise it's just gonna stay with the old content. If the UX is not started, then I know that I should not be working on these wireframes yet because it will be a waste of my time. If a UX in progress, and I know that this is a good time to suggest changes and implement things and talk to my designer. And if it's in progress and the designer does not come to me and tell me, hey, I'm working on this thing, then I know it's a good time to say, hey, do we want to have a meeting about this? Like, So status labels are just kind of a really good way to communicate the overall status of something. They're not a good way to have a conversation, right? A conversation should happen in person, all right? So again, this is what we look like when we're very happy and we sit together and we talk about things and we have actual conversations on Zoom or in person or on Slack is also fine. But it is really important to say that after having all these tools and having this collaboration process and setting the guidelines and all that kind of stuff, even the best Figma process cannot fix bad communication. So I think a lot of teams, or at least I hear from a lot of people who are trying to kind of replace the need to talk to one another by using fancy plugins or kind of talking about their Figma process. It is not going to work. If you don't meet, if you don't talk about things, really, then nothing can help you. So start by fixing the communication problem that you have, if you have it, and then go to Figma. Okay, have a weekly meeting with your designer. Have a Slack channel for everybody to talk. Make sure you're invited to all the relevant meetings. And when those things happen, you can move to fixing your Figma process. So yeah, that was a quick one. That's it for me. So thank you very much.